Welcome to Tales from the Trenches, Season 4. Today, I'm talking with Amanda Smith.
Here's a story of a fundraiser who was launching his very own web show. Each episode is very short due to edits, so it can really flow. Here's a story of a podcast guest star who was busy raising money of their own. They were each great in their own way, fundraising in the zone. Till the one day when Jack asked a guest to join him, and they knew it was much more than a jest, that these guests must somehow form a resource. That's the way they all became the podcast guests. The podcast guests. The podcast guests. That's the way they became the podcast guests.
Amanda Smith is a seasoned philanthropy leader with 20 years of experience in advancement services and strategic data management. As executive director at Lehigh Valley Health Networks, she has significantly enhanced donor pipelines and fundraising performance. With both an MBA and an MPA, Amanda combines academic expertise with practical experience for nonprofit organizations. Her achievements include increasing a donor pool by 1,455% in just 3 years. Recognized in the Association of Healthcare Philanthropy's 40 Under 40, Amanda excels in leveraging data-driven strategies to drive philanthropic successes, focusing on coaching fundraising teams and optimizing major gift strategies. So Amanda, welcome.
Thanks, Jack, for having me.
Talk to me about how philanthropy was spoken about around your dinner table growing up.
That wasn't a thing, right? I grew up in a two-parent household, and I had a younger brother. My dad worked in engineering type GIS work, and my mom was a teacher. But that was never anything that really was spoken about. They weren't very philanthropic. They, worked hard and saved money and are fortunate enough to help us get through college without a lot of student debt. So I'm appreciative of that. But it just wasn't really talked about. So I think now, I have a son and he hears about this all the time because it's my job, right? And the importance of giving back. So he does things like volunteer with me at events for the hospital and things like that. And my hope is that he'll be charitable in the future. But definitely, I don't know how often it's talked about. My mom used to tell people that I worked in fundraising, and they would say, "Oh, like she does like bake sales and stuff."
Exactly.
No,
The
not
events, my
quite.
favorite.
Yeah, not quite. But also, we do have some, professionals within healthcare that don't really understand philanthropy. It's like, oh, you guys are, I got a question one time. Oh, you guys give money out. Well, no, we're raising money for things within the hospital. So I think if you're not directly in it, I tell people I work in the philanthropy department when I go to like doctor's appointments within my own network, and they're like, oh, okay. And I still don't think everybody understands what that means. I don't, if you're not in it, it's hard to maybe understand what it is and what you're doing. So not bake sales. I try to tell them that. So
Yeah, definitely. So, fundraising has evolved. Part of me thinks that it's evolved quite a lot over the last number of years, especially during COVID. But then part of me thinks that it's the tried and true is the tried and true, right? And, a decade ago, as we were starting with email, everyone was saying, oh, that's the end of direct mail. That's game over, right? And far from it. People may reply to a direct mail letter online or give it in a different way, but direct mail still is
for
a
sure.
workhorse, right?
Yeah.
So how do you think the fundraising, both, from the technical standpoint, even as seen as you had said, a lot of people have no idea what the philanthropy department does. How do you think it's going to kind of evolve in the next 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because when we look at who our average donor is, right? Our average age donor is between 72 and 74 years old. And if we took direct mail out, we would be dead in the water. We get so many of our donations from direct mail. Um, but there is definitely that need for email. But when I'm working with people, how do you stand out, right? Because how many emails do you get a day, right? So if you're supporting multiple nonprofits or interested in things that nonprofits are doing, you're inundated with emails. And it might not just be fundraising emails, but it could be newsletters or updates. Or like you said, if you're buying tickets to an orchestra, right? If you're a subscriber to an orchestra, maybe you're getting emails that week about ticket sales in addition to those calls to action to donate. So I think it's hard in that digital space to really stand out. So I feel like it's going to be ever evolving. Of course, with AI, I think that, is going to be a big thing within the next, is already a big thing now. I saw ChatGPT came out with version 5 yesterday. So I think that'll be ever evolving in terms of how we do fundraising. They have the virtual gift officers now as well. They kind of creep me out, but if you use them, great. um, but I think direct mail is, I work with a ton of nonprofits that still are not, that direct mail is tried and true. It's just, people, and I don't know if it's older people, but, you want something physical in your hand, or you want to see that impact on paper. And eventually maybe it'll go away. But, as that generation moves out and is no longer donating or no longer, unfortunately, here with us, what does that look like in terms of philanthropy? And I'm a little hesitant because I don't know, is the younger generation really philanthropic? I would say probably not as much as where we are now. And that's probably going to be a big concern for nonprofits in the next 20 years, I would imagine. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think some of that has to do with trust, right? The older generation would trust in organizations and institutions. They would stay with them forever, right? Once you got a gift on an annual side, they would rarely take it away. They might give less if they had less, but rarely would they say, you know what, you're off the list. Where the younger folks kind of go in, do something very project-based, and then move on to the next shiny object.
Yeah. The next thing is actually somebody's asked me this week. They did a study. Somebody did a study on having, once those millennials or those 20 somethings are set on something, it's very hard to get them to move away from that. So this was an example about a music program. How do you get the younger generation to be interested in certain kind of music, right? That nonprofits are doing. So like orchestra, is that out now? Like, are people still interested in that? Will they be interested in 20 years? Who knows? Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see how it all shakes out. Hopefully we'll still be here to see how that all, pans out. But
Yeah. Well, so that's kind of looking at the future. So if we were to kind of take that time machine and go back in time, and if you were able to give yourself some advice as you were starting off in the fundraising world, what kind of advice would you give yourself?
well, it's interesting that you talked about future forward, right? I think prospect research has come a long way since I was doing it, 20 years ago. I started. Man, good advice. I think data is our best friend. I think so often we're quick to, I have worked at a previous position where a gift officer would just look at a capacity rating and say, okay, I'm going out and I'm going to, ask for a large gift. And do we know the whole story around the data, right? What is that donor's affinity? Have they ever given to us in the past? I think we often don't look inwards at our own stuff, and we're so focused on the flashy, shiny things that might exist when our best prospects live in our database. But yeah, data. I don't know. It's a journey. Fundraising's a journey. I started in research and then went into annual giving, and I was a gift officer, and it just was not where I wanted to be. I had a child, and I was like, I don't want to be doing events, and I don't want to be out traveling. So I went back into advancement services, and I think I wouldn't change that. So if I had to tell myself that, I think I got a good dose of everything around fundraising. And I think that's made me a better person as a whole. So I do know that major gift officers struggle, right? And that asking is not always the easiest thing to do because I've done it in the past. I don't want to do it again because it wasn't my thing, and I found my niche in doing kind of data type work. So I wouldn't change much or give myself that much different advice. Just roll with it. You're going to, I worked in all different sectors too, which I think makes a well-rounded person. So,
Hmm. So, I'm sure I get calls all the time where people want to take me for a coffee or an adult beverage and pick my brain. They're thinking about changing careers, right? Because I think I read a stat that says the average college graduate today will go through 9 careers in their life, not 9 jobs, 9 careers in their life. So, sometimes people want to jump into the not-for-profit arena. So, what are the kind of traits that you would be looking for as you're hiring people?
yeah. So the number one thing that I look for in a gift officer when we're hiring is somebody that's really entrepreneurial. You've got to be able to kind of hit the ground and really want to make calls. Cold calling is still a thing, right? You get a prospect that comes through that looks great. You've got to call them and be able to make a connection with them. Um, we're also looking for people that are versatile, right? Like, are you easily able to go speak to somebody at an event, even if you're not maybe the event person or you're not the major gift officer? Because I think so often we think, okay, it's only the front office that has a stake in, overall fundraising goal, but it's really the whole team, right? So it goes down from that gift processor who's just entering the gifts, right? If they enter a gift incorrectly and the stewardship letter goes out incorrectly, right, that affects our relationship. So we're really looking for people that are able to speak to people, answer phone calls, have that kind of outgoing spirit. Now, not everybody's outgoing. I understand that. I have team members who will tell you, "I don't want to go to events," and that's fine. That's fine with me. Like, right? That's not your wheelhouse, but being able to still talk to people and answer questions, that type of thing. Yeah, entrepreneurial, outgoing, but also willing to learn. I think in our space, healthcare is completely different. You might have a doctor come and say, like, "Hey, I need to raise money for stem cell." Well, you've got to work with that clinician, right? And try to develop a proposal if that's what your donor's interested in. So I think that the longtime learner is somebody too that we look for often.
Amanda, this has been absolutely fascinating. I really enjoyed our chats. If someone wanted to get hold of you, how would they go about doing that?
Sure. Well, Jack, depends. I have an email. It's amanda@wisenow.com, WIZENOW.com. Cool AI tool that we're working on over there on Wise, but also do some annual fund, major gift stuff as well. So thanks so much for having me. I was, first time podcaster, but I really enjoyed it.
Oh, good. I'm so glad to hear.